Hello, this is Elizabeth and Elton Brewington from Brightside Global Trade TV, and we now have a podcast, which we're so excited about. And as everyone knows on this channel, we interview and review books, and we love spending time with authors. This one in particular is very special, and he is Shep McKenney, and he's written a book, A Life's Work: Learning to Overrule My Mindless Brain. I think just the whole topic about my mindless brain could take an hour to talk about. And get the book. It's available everywhere, and we'll make sure that you have all the links at the bottom of this video. And as we say, when you buy the book, snap a photo and show us that you bought the book so we know you're paying attention to this podcast. And if you like it or share it, there's a lot of things you could do. So please subscribe to Brightside Global Trade if this is the first time you're on our show. And we're moving to a new name, the Brightside Channel, so stay tuned for news about that. So Shep, tell us about the book and about yourself, and then I'll let Elton ask you a few questions as well.
The origin of the book is my lifelong experience of feeling like my brain wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. Not just worry, anxiety, all those negative emotions, but also even just showing discipline and responsibility in my daily activities. Simple things like when you get up in the morning, instead of putting off the thing you dread the most, you do the thing you dread the most and get it out of the way, just basic functionality. So I struggled a lot with feeling like there was something fighting against me. And I majored in philosophy in college. I was raised as a Christian. I studied Zen, meditated. I did a lot of searching. But what I finally realized was that my brain was just constantly doing things I didn't want it to do, even though I knew what I wanted. I don't want to think about negative things. I don't want to be jealous of other people. I don't want to feel anxiety. But my brain is always going to the worst place, just always dragging me down into the pit. And I'm basically an optimistic person. And I've been able to function externally in terms of professional success and all of that. But on the inside, I've just been tortured so much. So I decided to learn about the brain. And of course, what helped that so much is that when I started this task, computers were just really coming on. And as I studied the brain, I realized that the brain is just a biological computer. And it's not that it's just that, but that the thing was designed at a different time for a different purpose. Our brains were not designed to make us feel happy and at peace with ourselves. They were designed to achieve an objective, which is basically to live long enough to pass on your genes. That's not something I get up in the morning thinking about. So I've written this book that walks the reader through my struggle with this, my search for the nature of my brain, and explains how I fleshed this idea out in a way that at the end basically says this, that for the first time in human history, we have an analog, we have a device we can compare to our brains that helps us push it away from ourselves and see it as something separate. And the corollary of that is that there is a you that is not your brain, and that you knows what is good and right. And I think that is the thing that is most known of all. We all know that in our hearts who we want to be. We know we've got good in us. The question is, how can you let it out? How can you get it past that filter that is the brain?
Wow.
Wow.
Great consideration, Shep. I mean, I appreciate you writing a book and coming on and sharing your internal perceptions about your writings. And at the end of the day, let's just go right to the cut of things. The reader, what do you want the reader to get from your evaluations and writings?
Well, the style of the book is very much built around disclosure of internal trauma.
Uh-huh.
So that's really the methodology of the book, is walking through all the times in my life when I have felt uncomfortable, anxious, not able to bring my best self to being alone or being with other people. And so each chapter, or most chapters certainly, begin with an autobiographical vignette.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, I draw a lesson from that based on what my brain is and how it works the way it does. And then as the book proceeds, I get away somewhat from the autobiographical vignettes and talk about the very nature of the brain and things that we already know about it, but we don't act on. And in the end, what I do is recommend to the readers a practice to manage their brains.
Okay. So
Because
are you your brain?
you got to use your brain.
I mean,
You
no,
can't.
that's not the question. Are you your brain?
And the question is, and the answer is no. I am not my brain. My brain is like my refrigerator. It's a tool I use to accomplish a specific objective, but I can't let it run my life.
Okay.
That's true.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's a very curious question. Personally, I don't know how everybody else feels. I am my brain. It's who I am. It's the tool I use, and there's not a separation between me and it. I mean, I rely on my brain. I mean, it actually your brain does more than you understand it to do. Actually, it regulates your blood pressure, your temperature. It regulates your heartbeat. It regulates unconsciously. It regulates all of the different tools that you're unaware of that keep your life sustained. How many times you breathe, what you see and how you contemplate what you see and put it into context, and also regulates pain. But I mean, aside from that, but in the argument or the dialogue that you presented, it's a very unique perspective of what and who Shep is, I think. And Shep is, I mean, I don't think Shep is separated from your brain. And I think the seamless unit of you and who Shep is and your brain is, I don't even, if you went through and tried to isolate you from your brain, because the brain also uses the conscious and the subconscious, and you've studied all this, and I don't know, I mean, personally, I appreciate your book, and I'm really excited to explore the inward aspects of how you remember things. And you're a seasoned fellow, and you've got
That's a nice way to put it.
yeah, you got some years behind you. And what if tomorrow Shep was to wake up and all of a sudden Shep is a new man? I mean, Shep was another man, and a man that I don't know this guy. Who is he? I mean, what if every day I get up, I'm thinking, man, the realization of who I'm Elton and who Elton is and who Elton can become and who Elton has never met before. With all kinds of capabilities and such. This is really an enormous discussion point. Because and you'd be surprised now the way you've looked at it, and I appreciate your dialogue, is that the brain is separated from me, and it won't do what that Paul in the scriptures described. That I won't will do, I can't do, and he talks about his inability to fulfill the mission that he's prescribed himself to do. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, maybe it's a lifelong challenge to get to be and do and to accomplish what you want and think you should be able to do.
That's why I call it a life's work.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's true. That's
Okay.
very true.
Now,
That's
now,
true.
all those functions that you've talked about, respiration, heartbeat, in the book, I call those housekeeping functions.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
So you say, well, the brain's got to be you because it does all these things.
Right. Right.
Is my hand my brain?
That's a part of.
Is it like my brain?
Well, I don't know if that's the case. It has a different purpose and serves a particular service. But
Well,
it's
let me ask you a question.
sure.
Are you always thinking about what you'd like to be thinking about?
Uh, well, let's put to answer your question. I am constantly in a state of, how can I put it? Mastering, my thoughts, thinking, and pursuit of objectives. Constantly, how do I master, a pursuit objective? Now, sometimes I do pretty good. Sometimes I can do better. So the question is, should you always be able to master what you're thinking to master? Yeah.
This is nothing is always.
Okay.
This is a tool to make your life better.
Sure. Sure.
And I have used this practice since I started writing this book, which I'm slowly refining. I still can't control immediate reactions. If I go to the doctor and the doctor says, we need to biopsy that, you think I don't have a reaction to that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
But,
sure.
but what I do now is I start saying, okay, you've written this book. Are you going to do it or not? All right.
Right.
Now, worrying about that biopsy, and sometimes it's weeks away, I can eat myself alive, or I can say, there is something in me that is fighting me, that's doing what I don't want it to do. And by pushing it away from me emotionally, I can get rid of a lot of that worry and distraction.
Sure. Well, I think inevitably it comes down to, even if you're not able to master a particular tactic or strategy, you have to have great strategies in your back pocket. Yeah, good strategies will always topple the mastery. If I, what the doctor say, every time I raise my hand, my shoulder hurts. When I move my foot hurts. Well, don't do that. At the end of the day, strategy. What's the inherent capacity of a good strategy? To win a battle, it's having good strategies. Good strategy. Now, some strategies will work some of the time, but some strategies won't ever work, or some strategies will work some of the time. So, and you've raised a very unique topic, and one that, as a seasoned professional, I'll say, you probably have great mastery over time and solutions. I think I just looking at you, I think you sit there with an element or an air of peace, as if I'm not worrying about that anymore. That's what I see. And you tell me if I'm wrong or not.
Well, you're wrong in this way,
Okay.
that it is a life's work.
Okay.
It's not something that you wave a wand and all of a sudden all of this negative stuff goes away.
Okay.
But what it is liberating. If I'm in a gathering and people are saying things that I think are really stupid and don't make any sense,
Okay.
I can chime in, I can throw my 2 cents worth in, or I can just sit there and shut up.
Okay.
And by doing that, I can exude an energy, an invisible energy that doesn't buy into the craziness, and that reflects to everybody in the room that maybe I'm onto something that this guy isn't.
Right.
Maybe there's something more here. This kind of presence. I think one of the biggest things that falls out of this is you don't say as much.
Right. Okay.
You ask yourself before you say something, is this going to help anybody, including me?
Okay. Okay.
But timing is so important in this. If you don't catch it at the beginning, if you let your brain grab it, it just runs with it. It says, oh, I'm going to show off. I'm going to show these people what's right.
Okay.
You got to catch it. And that's a big point I make in the book,
Mhm.
that it's about timing. You have to always be conscious. Is what's happening right now what I want? Am I feeling what I want? I mean, instantly.
That's interesting. So you're philosophically in the book. Let's discover what you've written and what you like other readers to explore. And do you want feedback? I mean, you've written a book, so you're the authority to some extent, and so, but you want people to read your book and you want them to explore your solutions. Tell us about that.
Well, one of the reasons I want to do these interviews is, and you guys have watched a lot of this, you're in the business, you know how this works.
Uh-huh.
They're all softballs. They're,
Uh-huh.
oh, he's written this lovely book. And, I saw this and I agree with that. And isn't this wonderful?
Uh-huh.
That's not what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Okay.
What I'm looking for is for people to say what you said. Wait a minute. What do you mean I'm not my brain?
Challenge.
Because that's the way you get to the bottom of things.
Mhm.
And there's another part of this. Language is so slippery.
Mhm.
So if I use a word, say if I use a word like soul,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
the reader says, wait a minute, this is some kind of religious nut. Or it has some association that takes them to a certain place.
Uh-huh.
And I am writing a book, I have to use words. And a lot of those words have triggers for different people.
Okay.
So what the interview can do is say, well, what do you really mean by that word? Is this really what you're talking about?
Mhm.
The process of understanding something that essentially can't be talked about. How do you talk about love? How do you talk about peace?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
can't talk about it. All you can do is paint a picture. And that's what I attempt to do in this book, is
Mhm.
paint a series of pictures that I hope different people can relate to, independent of specific language.
And I think that's like it's like a pursuit of of your brain and how it and positive thoughts versus negative thoughts and overcoming challenges. I just think tell us a little bit about you being an entrepreneur, because our audience is mostly business and people, and I think this book could be great workshops and manifestations and great things that we could do with the book. But tell us a little bit about you had four separate careers, with a hotel and then a boat chain, and then you started with law practice. So you've switched gears, and has that had an impact? And do you talk about that in the book? So that's always switching gears to four, and you've been pretty successful. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you see, I can't hold a job down. So, so I grew up in the rural South,
Mhm.
and I grew up in a culture which really respected professional and financial achievement. Those people were looked upon, there was the farmers and the gas station owners, which my dad was. And then there were the lawyers and the doctors and, the people who looked like they had it made, which of course is not the case, but that's the way it seemed. And so when I went to William and Mary College, I had debated in high school. And of course, Perry Mason was a big deal. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to be a lawyer? So I went to law school and I stayed at William and Mary because I had a job, because I had to put myself through school. And I became a lawyer. And it was with a business law firm. So I had a lot of association with entrepreneurial businesses and so on. And I quickly realized that my clients were the people who were doing the most interesting stuff. I mean, when you're a lawyer, you get an assignment. Your client says, I want you to do this. And so you do that. But they get to roam the landscape. They get to say, hey, I've changed my mind about this. I'm going in this direction. I see an opportunity over here. So I had a client who was a real estate developer who was looking for a partner. And I explain in the book that my departure from the law firm was a very painful thing because I had become the leader of the young lawyers in the firm.
Yeah.
And then I jumped ship on them, which is, and of course, that was a life lesson. I was not nearly as honest in dealing with them as I should have been. So anyhow, so I do this entrepreneurial business, which is we started the first chain of all suite hotels in the country.
That's a pretty good thing. Yeah.
And that business started out very scarily. I was at one point $3 million in debt and had no income because we weren't making any money. And in the middle of all that, I was also going through a marriage which turned out to be unsuccessful. So the drama in the business and the drama in the marriage are woven together. So, for example, my disconnect with my wife and with my children during those years of scary struggle is all a part of the picture of why wasn't I able to compartmentalize? Why couldn't I go home at night and be with my children and my wife? But I carried everything home in terms of the pressure. And you're familiar with this. I mean, this is not
absolutely no.
This is not a unique story, but it is a life lesson in compartmentalizing. But I mean, what I effectively say is my brain is a tyrant. It says, I got this. No, you don't want to pay attention to them. You got to be thinking about this. You got to sweat it. You got to feel bad. It's like a jockey, whipping the horse. So anyway, so I was in that business for 12 years. And we actually got pretty successful. We built 16 hotels in the Southeast. But we had a lot of drama too, because we built 2 big high-rise hotels in Houston and the oil market crashed. And I went through a couple of years where I thought everything was going to be lost. But somehow I was able to get out of that and actually get some money out of it. But meanwhile, I wanted to be in a business that I loved. So I owned a sailboat, a cruising sailboat that was built by a company in Maine that I loved. And I love Maine. I love the Maine coast, the mountains. So while I was trying to manage a hotel company in crisis, I bought a boat building business in Maine that was bankrupt.
Smart move.
So that was a brilliant move. But somehow I was able to get some money out of the hotel business and turn the sailboat company around. Meanwhile, my marriage had dissolved, and I'm weaving in meeting my present wife, who is the love of my life. And I describe in great detail there's no other word for it, the illumination of meeting a truly free soul that really taught me what my life was about. I explained that it's like the Wizard of Oz and landing in Oz and everything going from black and white to color.
Yeah, I know. That I was just going to make that comment. So yeah, so you found a great relationship. Yeah.
But then I go on to say that even after I got all this money out of the hotel business, and now I had this business I loved and I turned it around, I wasn't getting the joy and peace that I thought. I say I'd gotten to heaven and it wasn't there. So And I'm sitting right at my farm right now. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I bet.
It's on a lovely river. We have over a mile of river frontage. It's a historic house. I have a dock where I have boats, and I was getting depressed.
Why?
That's right. Why?
Yes, why?
Why?
Did you
So
find
talk about your brain not doing what you want it to do.
did you find an
My
answer to the
brain was so charged up, so fierce to get to the next thing. When there was no next thing, I didn't know what in the hell to do.
Hey,
So did you find the answer to the why?
Well, let's go on with the career part. I don't know what you want to do next
well,
because
we're just curious because the book you're leading to a fantastic story about a life's work, and you have drawn some stories that anyone on this broadcast is listening to is going to identify themselves. And so if you discovered the why, I guess we shouldn't talk about it. You should read the book. Get the book. This is what this interview is about. Get the book, and then you'll find out the why. So I want to if you want to tell them the why, that's fine, but we don't want to give them everything about the book because they need to read the book. So
Let me
get
ask
the
you
book
let me
and
ask you one question too before we get there. In the process of your experiences, a life pursuit, and all of these elements, I mean, where were you the happiest?
in moments when I could get past my brain, when
okay.
I would just break through.
So you've done it before. You've done
Oh,
it.
I've done it before, and I do it now. But there are episodes, I say in the introduction to the book, that heaven is not a permanent residence. Heaven is a hotel I check in and out of, depending on how well I can manage my brain. So this is about a journey, a life's work of practicing, and getting better and better. And I have gotten better and better.
Okay.
Awesome.
So the reader, what are the privileges that they'll receive when they buy and read the book, and people who are having the experiences that you have had, and you've gotten past your brain, and you come to a place where I'm here. I
Well,
guess.
it isn't a one-step process.
Okay.
So when you read the book, you will see that I admit a lot of things most people don't want to admit. One of
Okay.
the big issues when I wrote this book, I have a lot of professional friends.
Yeah, you're awesome. Yep, I believe it.
I taught in college. I have business associates, and all these people have looked at me and said, "Boy, this guy's really got his act together."
That's
When
right.
you read this book, you know it ain't so.
Okay.
And by doing that, what I hope to do is to encourage the reader to do the same thing about themselves, because that's the first step. If you're not willing to admit to yourself how crazy it is in there, you're not going to do this. You've got to own all those crazy thoughts, all those judgments, all those distractions. So, it's a little bit like a Christian confessing their sins. I mean, that's kind of an analogy. This
Yes,
is a religious thing, but you kind of got to hit bottom and get underneath the problem before you can move ahead.
that's right.
So that's a big part of the book, is me constantly admitting how nutty I am, even with my wonderful wife and my wonderful children. I'm still stupid sometimes, but
Yeah.
at least I'm beginning to recognize the stupid and to avoid some of the worst of it.
Well, that's big.
Okay.
That's big for you to acknowledge that.
Right.
And say that, because most people wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
Now, the thing that caught me when I first read your book, I briefly glanced through it, was that I have this problem because I'm learning to swim and my body is fantastic. It moves great in the water, but it's my brain that will say, let's stop now. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, why? Let's
That's
keep
it. That's
going,
it.
And
That's it.
And I've always been very fearful because, I grew up on a beach, and my father was a great swimmer, and everybody in my family could swim. And so I was always lagging behind, but it wasn't about the ocean, because obviously now I'm in a swimming pool, but it really is me, because I'm telling myself, stop now, you've swum enough, but actually keep going. Why stop? So I would say the same to you, is keep going. And we have a broadcast, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we meet every month. And I would love for you to come back and meet some of our group. And I think they're going to love this book, because we have a lot of veterans in the group, and many of them commit suicide. And so one of my missions is to encourage veterans to overcome, because, they have a hard time transitioning back to civilian life after everything was done for them in the military. It becomes difficult to get back to normal. So I think your book would be really helpful to some of them, and I'm going to recommend the book in my blog as well. So if you're watching this, this would be a great book for you to. It's kind of like you'd be competing and doing that. So any extra questions before I
No, I
wrap up?
just no. It's amazing. I'm just Shep. I'm just amazed by your comments, your writings, and I mean, I'd love to explore more. I think
Yes.
you novel ideas and perceptions about life, and maybe there are people who have such analysis or viewpoints, and so it's an interesting dialogue to help absorb and observe for the people who just for whatever it's not as the way you've described it, they run into an obstacle, and it's like a hurdle, and I gotta find some kind of way that I don't have to jump it or feel like I gotta jump it, and still find or stay. How do I get to peace, total and complete peace, without this perception of my brain losing itself? But that's only me. But I appreciate your comments. It's been delightful in terms of absorbing and observing, and I'm motivated. I'm saying, oh wow. And so, as Claire was describing, we invite you to come back and return.
Yes.
And we also have an opportunity for you to talk more. And talking always gives us it explores and it produces a state of peace.
Now, where is the absolutely right, Elton? It takes you to a place of peace. And as you rightly put, every day may not be a good day, and you'd have some good days and bad days. But the place of peace, when you do have it, enjoy it, and make the most of it. So where can people buy this book? Do you have a website, or should we put them to Amazon?
Yes, I have a website.
What is it? Yeah.
It's why did you have to ask me that?
I'm sorry. I'll make it available. I'll make it available in the comments, but you can get it at Amazon, because I was on
Yes.
Amazon this morning. I am an Amazon affiliate, so we have a little bookstore of books that we recommend. So definitely go to Amazon, but I will make sure that Shep's website is at the bottom of the screen, so you can.
It's a life's work, I think.com.
Okay.
But it's also on Audible.
It's also on Audible. Oh, that would be great. Did you read the
Let
whole
me
book?
tell you, that was an experience.
That's what I'm told by many authors.
Oh my God, you're in a studio and there's a sound engineer and a director. And so they want you to read the book with feeling, but they don't want you to make a mistake. They want you to emphasize the parts that should be emphasized. So you're nervous because you don't want to screw it up, and they stop you. They say, wait, no, go back, do that again. I tell you what it did. It gave me so much appreciation for actors.
Yes.
How hard it is.
Take one, take two, take three.
That's right.
To follow the script, but emote and be spontaneous. It's a difficult combination.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you for writing a book and bearing your soul, as they would say, in the book. But second of all, to actually read your own book, because I have many authors that ended up hiring people to read their book because they said it was too stressful. So I have heard about Audible being quite an experience, and for you to read your own book, so that is a big deal. So congratulations for
Yes,
that.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
And thank you for doing this interview.
So-
We value this very much, and we would like to have you back on our show. So
Thank
you
you.
folks
My
for
son
watching.
just handed me a note. The
Yes.
website is shepmckenny.com.
Okay. So it's just like his name, shepmckenny.com. And I will make that available to you as well, so that you can click on it, get the Audible. I think the Audible would be as fantastic as actually reading the book.
One
So,
last question that I'd like for you. At the end of our experience, what would bring you the greatest sense of gratification regarding your book and the production of it?
that's a big one.
I think I want to understand a little more about your question.
Okay.
What would bring me the
Greatest sense of accomplishment and gratification with you writing the book?
I have always been an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I remember when I was in high school and we took preference tests. You know about preference tests,
Yeah.
what kind of career would be suited to you?
Uh-huh.
And my rating as a social worker was at the very bottom.
Okay.
Okay. Which makes it sound like this guy must not care about other people because he doesn't want to help them. And I've always felt that a little bit about myself. I see a lot of my friends who do so much charity work and all this stuff. And, you know, I've done this stuff, but it's not where my heart is.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But this discovery that I have made, this practice I have developed, is really my chance to give something back to the world
Okay. Okay.
in a way that I feel like I uniquely can.
So
I think I agree with that.
I think I hear you saying
Yes.
that people read your book and they come to the same questions that you have, and that you're able to give them go left, go right, do this, do that, if I understand you correctly.
And also
Is
people,
that right?
Yes,
Okay.
you're absolutely right.
Okay. I don't need to be, but I just want to make sure that I'm there, you know.
empowers people, I think, you know, when they can see this journey, which most of us wouldn't even consider, thinking about our brain and thinking about, you know, how our brain is guiding us in the wrong direction. You know, most of us would think that the brain is going in the right direction. So I think this is a great book. I highly, highly recommend it. It's Father's Day, guys, the month of June. It's a month that we celebrate men. We love our men dearly. And so I think this is a great book to give your father as a Father's Day gift, or all through the year. And also, it's a great launch for the book. And I think that I encourage you to buy the book yourself. But this is also a great book for the month of June.
Right.
It'll be on the Brightside Club recommended list for our club members as well. And for all of you watching us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we really value you so much, and thank you for watching.
Thank you both very much. I really appreciate this.
One last thing, but
go ahead.
You stopped
Not
recording?
not yet.
Okay. No, no, the next has to do with offline.